Hello, welcome to a brand new video. Today we're diving into Augustine's On the Free Choice of the Will. It's one of the most important works in philosophy and theology. In the book, Augustine asks some tough questions. For example, if everything is created by God, then where does sin come from? What makes something truly good or bad? Is it according to man's law or God's law? And do we really have free will, or are we just pretending? And in this video, I'll walk you through Augustine's answers and show you how he tries to solve the problem of evil, meaning of free will, and our search for true happiness. According to Augustine, our faculty of reason, as guided by God, will lead us to solve such difficult problems. It's not the case that reason and revelation contradict each other, but rather they complement each other. So basically, that there's two types of evil. There's evil suffered and evil done. The former is punishment from God, which is justice for sins, and evil done, on the other hand, is sin in itself, and is not caused by God, but by our own free will. Let's talk about the source of wrongdoing. For example, what makes adultery wrong? Is it the fact that our law says it's wrong, or the fact that people are condemned for it? Or maybe it's just an appeal to authority. Or maybe, if my wife cheated on me, and I don't want her to do that, and therefore me doing the same thing to her would be wrong. But what if you're really freaking into that kind of thing? Augustine says what makes it immoral is the intention behind it, and this applies to all sins as well, but it's a bit more complicated than that. How about murder? Yes, it can be done due to ill intention, but can't it also be done out of fear? Like, what if a slave kills his master because of being brutally mistreated? Is this sinful? Or maybe this murder is also done out of intention, because it's the intention of the fear of death, and that's basically the intention to live, because we're afraid of losing something against our will. What is it about us that compels us to act free? It is because it's in our nature to be free-willed. Animals don't have free will or the capacity to think and to contemplate. They're alive, but they don't even know that they're alive. Our free will is what leads us to have intentions and motives and desires. We have the choice to follow our desires or not. We choose to sin voluntarily or to go against God's law, and in that you're valuing your freedom to choose a temporal life over eternity. For Augustine, the eternal law of God is immutable and is of reason, while the temporal law is the opposite. Different civilizations and communities have different laws for different times and different people in different circumstances. Due to this, temporal law is contingent upon the eternal law, and the eternal law is the criteria of truth. Therefore, what is just in the temporal law is just a reflection of the eternal law. And furthermore, if the temporal law is not just, then it's not law at all. And if we abandon the eternal law in favor of the temporal law, then Augustine says that we have to be prepared to suffer the consequences of our actions. A good will is will in which we choose to live virtuously. And this is where he discusses the four cardinal virtues. We have prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance. And a good person with a good will have all these features. Prudence is practical wisdom of what one should do to achieve the good. Fortitude is our hate against temptation of wrongdoings. Temperance is our ability to control our desires. And justice is when each person is given their due. Now we're entering the second book of this, larger work of this book. And this is more about the defense of free will. For example, why was free will given at all if it allows for suffering and sin? For this question, Augustine says that free will was a gift from God, and to prove this, he anticipates Descartes by 1300 years and makes an ontological argument for God's existence from self-awareness. Basically, the self exists and cannot doubt itself, and then from there we go from senses to the inner sense of the self, to reason, and then to truth. And since truth is superior to reason and immutable, God, who is the highest reality, must exist. This is because immutable truths like mathematics and wisdom are objective and universal, and higher than the human reason and wisdom. And therefore, truth is either God himself or comes directly from him, and therefore God exists. As for free will, everything that comes into existence is from God, and therefore is good. Free will, though capable of misuse, remains good, just as our hands and our eyes can be misused but are still good. In Book 3, Augustine discusses the relationship between divine foreknowledge and free will. God foreknows everything, but is not the cause of all that he foreknows. Thus, divine foreknowledge does not cancel out free will. In modern terms, you could say that the objector to Augustine's argument is making a modal fallacy. to claim that there's a discrepancy between God's foreknowledge and free will is known as the omniscience paradox. And we can say to this objector that God's knowledge is descriptive, not causative. Then Augustine goes into more theology that all creation reflects God's order, even with the apparent flaws. Existence itself is a gift, therefore no one should be ungrateful for life. And the world's perfection requires both sin as possibility and punishment as justice. And every nature is good, even if it's corrupted, and its corruption still exemplifies God's goodness as a creator. Then he also discusses the inheritance of sin from the original sin of Adam and Eve. Then he talks about the soul's origins and baptism of children and other such things. And while these might be important in Christianity, they're beyond the scope of this video. As for my overall opinion on the book, I thought it was a good read. It kind of reminds me of a Platonic dialogue, since it's a conversation between Augustine and his student Evodius. And while it did discuss things like divine foreknowledge, I wish it discussed divine will in more in depth. As for my personal stance on free will, I'm a compatibilist, and what that is like the middle ground between absolute libertarian free will and hard determinism. What that means is that human beings act freely, but only in the scope of God's will. We don't will unless God wills. I also wish that Augustine spoke about secondary causation, and whether he believed in it or not, or if he's an occasionalist or believes something else entirely. But I'm pretty sure by reading between the lines that he does believe in secondary causation, as did Aquinas and Ibn Taymiyyah, unlike Malebranche, or how do you say that French dude's name, and also Al-Ghazali was also an occasionalist. And that brings us to the end of this video. Hopefully that made sense to you, and leave in the comments below what your opinions are about the book, and whether you agree or disagree with free will or Augustine's conception of it. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe.